Recently, we watched a video from Vaush talking about their struggle with traveling as a streamer, for they are autistic, and today they are going to be talking about what it means to mask as an autistic person and why they don't do it. Well, let's have a look, see what they have to say.
Diagnosed with autism, and as part of that, I found out two things. I found out one, that a lot of my friends think I'm really weird, and I didn't know that, but they filled out like evaluations. And they just said that they thought I'm weird, and that basically everyone thinks I'm weird.
Oh, bless her.
Wait, how do you get your friends to fill out Wait, I'm sorry. In what context did this take place? Because it makes it sound like the diagnosis for autism came along with a bunch of forms. Like, hey, give these to your friends to fill out. Some doctors ask.
I've never heard of that being sort of a way that they go about it. I know that they talk to parents and things of that nature about, you know, what you were like as a kid. That's very strange. Oh, I don't know who this is. Borderline academic TikTok. Oh, I mean, I'm pretty open about being weird. I'm pretty happy about that. People say, oh, I know Thomas is a little bit odd, a little bit strange. I'll be like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But I suppose if you're just finding out from an application form that your friends think that you're odd and they've never said anything of that nature, I don't know how I would take that. Hello, Tanwen. How are you doing?
Ask for that. I have never heard that before. Adult autism diagnosis.
I haven't heard of it
really?
Before either. My
parents had to fill out some. Really? Wait, that's insane. Seriously?
Yeah, parents. Have you guys had any of your friends did you have to give, like, if you've gone for an adult autism assessment, have they given application forms out for your friends? That's very strange.
How to pursue an autism diagnosis. There's no ASD diagnosis criteria. I don't know. So this might be like a doctor by doctor thing. I don't know. That sounds so weird to me. It's extremely common. The idea is that you have to have an observer fill out a form. That is so infantilizing. What, like you have, like you think your behavior might warrant a diagnosis? So like, let's get your friends and family together to like fill out the "Are you a weirdo?" form to like. That is so...
Okay, so we've not got into the exact topic of the conversation, but it tends to be with these clips that we see from the Vaush pit, that it starts off rambling and then it gets into it. But I think this is quite a valuable conversation to be had, because, yeah, I don't understand that. That is so infantilizing, especially if it's mandatory. I just can't imagine a situation where you go for an assessment and they'd say, okay, give these to your friends in your vicinity to see what they say about you. They call it an informant form. It's none of the things he is saying. Only the real ones would know the full extent of my weird. Hi, Jordan. How you doing? Law, my entire network would be like, oh yeah, she's so weird. I don't understand what they would get from that. Is it just like basically saying that, okay, they seem a bit different? Because they're not really going to have, unless your friends are into that community and they know about it and stuff, they're not really going to have anything really to say about it, I guess. Unless they ask some probing questions, which might be a little inappropriate for a diagnosis. Friends.
So strange. I've never been formally diagnosed with autism. When I was like 7 to 8 years old or something, I was a weird little kid. And my parents brought me to the doctor, and the doctor was like, okay, so here's the deal. Your boy here, Ian, almost certainly is autistic, but your school district has an automatic enrollment in special education if you meet a diagnostic criteria for certain conditions, including autism. Meaning that if I diagnose him formally, then the school, which of course has his medical records, like, you know, as schools often do, he'll be enrolled in the retard class, the pit that we throw them in. That sounds like a joke, but at my elementary
it's the R word coming out of nowhere. I haven't heard of that happening before. I guess it must be quite different in the US, but also like state to state, because I don't think any of you guys have mentioned anything like that. I think it's kind of a difficult procedure to try and get spots in special needs schools in the UK. I always thought medical records are private. Well, I imagine that I hope that they got permission from that lovely lady about it. Yes, he did say the R word. These streamers, these bread tubers, they seem to say it a lot for some reason. I have no idea. R word, autism, autistic, acoustic, bitistic, tism. We hear all of that stuff nowadays. I was allowed to choose a completed form. Well, that's fair enough then, isn't it? I guess, but they look and see if your symptoms are just in your head or if other people see them. Yeah, I understand that, but I feel like people just. I feel like there is a bias to say no, like they're just strange. They're not autistic. You know, they're just a little bit different in that way. I feel like that's the kind of. I mean, that's what I hear from like you guys when, you know, you find out that you're autistic and you tell your family or you tell your friends and they say, "Oh no, you're not that. You're not an autistic person. You know, you're just a bit strange and different, and you know, you're just a bit quirky. You know, nope." You know, so I imagine that just getting like a friend's perception on you, I can't imagine that being very useful. Considering like the negative reactions that we tend to get from people, and like the automatic denial. My school forced me to repeat kindergarten 3 times due to what they call delayed social integration. WTF that means. When I was allowed to go on to first grade, I was put in special ed till kindergarten? I don't know. You're from the US. I don't know what kindergarten is. I imagine it's like nursery or something like that, maybe. That's weird. No, I never had anything like that. I mean, I feel like my social development wasn't too great. My grades were good. I think that was enough for them, but nope, nothing of that nature. I'm going to mute my mic for a second so I can cough. I am just a little bit sick. It's all the aspartame.
/middle school, there actually was like a pit, kind of. It was a staircase that went down from the hallway that led into the central cafeteria area, and it was like this disgusting bird shit ridden concrete with metal stair railing staircase that headed down into like a dark and very smelly like little like staging space.
Sounds wonderful.
With enough room for maybe one person.
We
and
had
then
a bridge.
From there there's one door, which I assume once you enter it,
we had a bridge at our school. That was kind of like the place that people went if they were a little different, or they needed some like tutoring during break times to get them caught up with class and stuff like that. I used to go there quite a few times because, I mean, one of the good things that my school did for me was if I was feeling like I was going to have a meltdown or a panic attack or something of that nature, they would let me go to this place and basically just sit down, even sort of within classes, although there were some teachers who questioned me like a fair bit, but eventually I got out of there. Got to go. Appreciate you, Thomas. Take care on. No problem. Good to see you, B. That would be a reception year in the UK. I see.
You just die. Yes, that was the Vaush pit. Anyway, my parents did not want that for me, so they held off on they denied the formal diagnosis, and we've just kind of operated on an informal basis there, which, by the way, I'm very thankful for, because while I was a weird little kid, and I'm still kind of weird today, I do not think that would have been very good for me. Special education, like education stuff for people with neurological abnormalities or neuroatypical stuff, is often like really, really, really bad, because being kind of asocial is often lumped together in with like actual cognitive disabilities. Does that make sense? Like, you can be somebody who is perfectly smart, perfectly capable of deductive reasoning, perfectly capable of completing assignments, but you're like really bad with social stuff, and you would get the same classroom with the same teacher and the same curriculum as somebody who is socially engaged, but like maybe actually cognitively disabled, you know, and therefore can't.
No, I mean, I guess it might have been like that during that time for them, because obviously it's like different depending on where you are. But, you know, when I've gone into special needs related schools, you know, doing my TA work, it tends to be that they do split people up based on what they need to be taught. I do argue maybe to a certain degree that is true from what I've seen, but also like the playground sort of social life experiences of those kids just seems to be like massively so much better for them like than what I've seen in sort of going and supporting within mainstream schools. It's kind of a difficult one, isn't it? Because you definitely want autistic kids to get to grips or like experience what neurotypicals are like, you know, try and learn to get on with them and stuff. But sadly, it's just not really executed very well a lot of the time. And it leads to a terrible amount of negative life experiences, particularly in teenagehood, which, yeah, not the best. It's debatable. I think it's a very person-to-person situation, but I'd say if possible, mainstream. But if the bullying and stuff too much, they don't seem to be able to cope. They take loads and loads of sick days. You know, consider it, or consider doing like partial homeschooling, something like that. If possible, of course, you know.
And complete the same assignment. It's just not good. It's not good. But then I skipped a grade, so dabbing on them.
And I also found out that, like, when you're friends with someone, my psychiatrist who diagnosed me, she said that friendship isn't supposed to feel like you're pretending the whole time. It's not supposed to be this, like, game where someone says something and then you pull up all the responses and then choose the right one. And it felt that way to me. It felt like one of those video games where all the different options pop up and you pick one, except I also had to generate all the appropriate options. I found out that it's not supposed to be that, and so then I've been, and that masking is bad. Masking is really bad for your mental health and your physical health, and so...
The idea is if you don't have a very strong intuitive understanding of how you're supposed to engage in social situations, and you're aware of the fact that you have a history of not making the correct choice, you start to... What is masking? It's basically like, I mean, it's what it sounds like to an extent, like trying not to come off as autistic. But in practice, what it can often mean for people who are autistic is that, not artistic, autistic. It can mean that you... being socially competent turns into a little bit of a crapshoot, if that makes any sense. Like, you don't have a strong intuitive understanding of what you're supposed to do.
It's not intuitive. It doesn't come to us naturally. It usually comes as a result of careful sort of dissection and like sort of like a scientific process, you know. You're needing rules for stuff. You learning stuff and you keeping it in mind, and it's a very like cognitive thing to have a social interaction if you're trying to mask, because you're constantly thinking about the ways that you're communicating indirectly, the flow of conversation, what other people are trying to communicate indirectly. You know, there's a whole host of different things, and the issue is it's not a science. Like, sometimes it'll work, I guess, but it's definitely not a science. Like, people are very different from each other. If you can mask well with a certain group of people, doesn't mean that you'll be able to mask well with another different group of people, you know. And also, it's so draining, and it just makes socializing a chore and like a test, you know. And you feel anxious, and your social battery drains even more than usual. You know, you got sort of a naturally perhaps lower social battery. Well, you add in those aspects of just constantly trying to like analyze and cognitively dissect everything that's going on in a conversation, and it just drains you. And then it's taxing. You get home, feel exhausted. It's too much. Add in all those sensory elements at school. That's some negative experiences with other kids, and it's a cocktail of anxiety and social paranoia. It's also not good. You should really, it really affects your self-perception, who you see yourself as. You don't feel real, especially if you do it at all hours of the day, all the time, you know. He says, I no longer mask unless I want to be in situations I choose to. Yes. Yeah. I think that's the key. You use it. You can use it. Use it sparingly, and use it in ways that is tolerable for you, but always, you know, remember that you are doing it. It's not you. I was put in lunchtime handwriting classes. I'll just accept that eventually I'll get too comfortable somewhere and I'll irreversibly offend somebody. I mean, I think the thing is that like people don't like know. Like, I can't remember what I was going to say. My brain's fumbled. Let's carry on.
So you have to put active effort and thought into it.
Yes.
And putting active effort and thought into how you're supposed to engage with and respond to people can make regular social interactions with friends feel more like, I don't know, I guess a little bit like a debate, where in a debate, you're not just like riffing. You don't just like intuitively engage in a debate. You have to...
It's like one of those story-driven game where you got to press a button to choose quickly between two options.
To think. You have to pause and think, what's the best thing I can say here? What lines of conversation do I want to pursue? What reactions will I prompt if I go down these different roads? Yeah. And it turns like every interaction basically into like that level of... But debate is not like a friendship thing. Debate is like a cognitive exercise where you're trying to achieve a given outcome. It's not the same.
Well, I don't think it's not just social interaction, you know. It's also like related to like how you dress, the things that you say that you like, who you portray to be, all of those aspects of individuality that usually you would have your own personal choice about. You just sort of blindly sort of mimic in order to kind of fit into a certain group or such. You know, there's a lot of different aspects to masking for sure, and it can also get to the point where you just have no idea what is you and what you are faking and putting out there. Life is like a bullet hell game. Life is more like an RPG. Yeah. Which stats are you putting your stats into? I don't know. Learning how to perform facial expressions in the mirror? Are you putting it into choosing the right set of hobbies to best integrate into your friend group?
Name is just like regular interacting with a friend. You know what I mean? Wait, isn't that the normal way everyone thinks? Ooh, maybe we should. Maybe it's a good thing we're watching this video. We can get some realizations rolling in chat. This is the year of the autist, though. True, but it is good to know, and it's not good to mask. You know, it's better to be aware of. Well, I've always thought like no matter.
No, it's really.
I guess there are people who are like low functioning autistic, and it's harder for them. But I think for most people who have trouble with it, you might not have the perfect, like, imagined, intuitive response to every social situation you think neurotypical.
Not the best language, but okay. Perhaps higher support needs individuals. Need language policing. Like, I'll let him spit. I'm not gonna highlight that too much.
People have, which they don't, by the way. Neurotypical people also flub in social situations all the time. But you know, I think it's
neurotypicals get it wrong.
To develop a better rapport with people around you than just like doing the like choice, the answer choice game where you're thinking of like, well, what would the best outcome be from these responses? You know.
So I've been trying to do that less, but now I'm just alone, and I don't want to pretend in order that people like me. It's really tiring. But like, I'm just supposed to be alone.
No.
Is there no world?
Oh, I empathize with so much. I know how you feel. I get it. Oh, yeah. That's the issue, isn't it? You mask and you fit in and you develop a friend group, but then you realize that that's not you that they're friends with, and then you feel even more lonely. It's not a nice situation. Bless her, yeah, I feel that.
World in which I'm me, and I have friends who like.
Yeah, Vaush, I have literally learned to socialize from playing Persona games. Wow. All right. Well, couldn't get that out of me with waterboarding. She just needs to watch Vaush. True. No, really though, yeah, it's very unfortunate. I'm sure things will get better for her. It does make sense, though, that if she developed friends that were, how do I put it? It kind of seemed like in her situation, with the masking stuff, with the making an active cognitive effort to maintain her interactions, it seems...
Gotcha says, I think I have nothing happy or helpful to offer months now. Been waiting to have the energy to mask before going back to making videos. I don't think you have to mask. I mean, you definitely, like, if you're making videos, you gotta talk in them, you know, that's... Sometimes masking does take that form. Is having to, forcing yourself to interact, I suppose, in that fashion. Iroro Havoc says, I've never tried to hide my weirdness, all credit due to my parents who never put pressure on me to fit in and always be myself no matter what was thought. 100%. I mean, I didn't mask when I was growing up in teenagehood. There is like 3 different aspects of social camouflage. Masking is one of them. There is also avoidance, and there is, compensation is the one. That's where the avoidance kind of comes up. So like it could just be avoiding situations where you're interacting with people. That's kind of what I did by just not really talking that much. That's how I went about it. And then the assimilation aspects of it is what I was talking about before. Changing aspects of your personality, how you dress, things that you're interested in to things that you don't particularly like at all, just because you feel like you need to fit into a group. And don't get me wrong, like, although I talk about masking in the context of autism, there is different types of masking. Like, you know, ADHDers can also mask a fair bit, because there are some differences socially for ADHDers too. Faggy says the feeling of loneliness in a crowd is the worst feeling than just being by your own. No, I mean, as I said, like, teenager didn't really mask. It was mostly compensation, avoidance, whatever you want to call it. But when I got into my early 20s, when I went to uni, I wasn't sort of surrounded by people that were just in my vicinity for like a long period of my life. I had to actively try and make friends, go to things. If I wanted to date, I had to find someone just out there, like in uni or, you know. So I found that very difficult because I didn't feel comfortable with them straight off the bat. And it was very awkward, and I didn't really know what to say. And it stressed the hell out of me, and I hated it. I was just thankful that I found myself with a few particular individuals who really got me and sort of brought me out of my shell a little bit, you know. But I did go through a long period of masking quite heavily, which I had to undo through active effort. And I mean, whilst I was doing it, it was kind of nice because I was kind of like the extroverted friend and I knew everybody, and you know, I don't know, I just felt like I was a different person, I guess, not myself. And it just over time it just felt false, felt gross, icky. Wanted to change myself, you know, wanted to be more authentic. Didn't really care too much about like results in terms of friendship and dating. I just wanted to find quality, you know, be myself and not skew the results, because you skew the results. If you mask, you attract people who like the mask, and then if you unmask, you know, you can't really expect people to not notice or perhaps not even want to be friends, because you're just not that similar genuinely, you know. That's the issue, you know. You can lose some friends, can perhaps lose a relationship if you mask during it. It's just one of those things. I know people who do mask pretty much all the time, and it never really works out for them, like long term. It's kind of sad. I get it though.
Seems like, yeah, she might have had pity friends, right? So if she had friends who were like, yeah, this girl is weird, and then they sort of like stopped interacting with her, it seems like she, with a poor understanding of like the social rapport between friends, she had pity friends who, you know, maybe didn't actively despise her presence or whatever, but didn't, you know, she was kind of like a hanger-on a little bit. And after that, you know, now that she has a better understanding of what she's doing, maybe she can like have a difficult period where she, you know, where initially she has trouble finding friends, but she like develops a new friend circle that's more in line with what she actually behaves like.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ideal. I've never heard it put in the context of pity friends, but definitely heard of things of the nature like mate crime, you know, people taking advantage of autistic people who are craving that social interaction, and, you know, in different ways, of course. Sadly, that's fairly common. Sometimes they just take advantage in a way just to have like a person to laugh at in the group, you know, and that feels awful when you realize you're that person. Or a pity friend, I guess. I guess that makes some sense. Sucks when the damage has already been done over and over and you just give up on it. I mean, I don't like to take a very nihilistic approach to it, you know. I think one of the important realizations for me in making friends or dating or anything like that is that, you know, if I mask, I'm probably going to get on with more people and have a bigger circle and, you know, all that. But you know, if I'm authentically myself, most people that I come across are probably not really want to be friends with me that much, and I'm probably not going to want to be friends with them either. But then I do find people who I do vibe with, and they like me. They're vibing with me, you know, not this mask, and it feels great. It's just a numbers thing, you know. It's hard to get past that thing. Yep, I know that too well. Sarah says that it's a double-edged sword. People feel like they can't trust you because deep down people recognize when somebody isn't being honest and real, but they will also be turned off from being real. I don't know if they can recognize. I think they just, I mean, yeah, maybe, I guess. I'm trying to think of a way of characterizing that makes sense to my brain. That's a good point, though. Can't really win, done if I do, done if I don't. Again, like, I don't, I wouldn't say go down the nihilistic route of like, it's just never gonna work, and you know, but I think managing expectations and just being like I feel like whenever I have had the most success as an unmasked individual, it's just been when I just didn't really care too much. Like, if I had a good conversation with someone, like, I would obviously, like, you know, you say we should go for a drink or, like, meet up or something like that. Then I would do that, but I don't think I care too much about what people's perceptions of me are as much. And I think generally having that authenticity about you, even if you are different and perhaps to other people a bit strange or weird or whatever you want to call it, I think people are kind of drawn to that, you know? Because I think you'll find, I mean, like myself, that a lot of people, if you are authentic, but you are also different, there's a lot of people who are just like curious because they kind of chill with you, they vibe with you in ways. But at the same time, like, you're a bit different and you seem cool and you seem chill and they want to talk to you, and so they want to understand a bit more about you, you know? But I understand it's a difficult topic, the whole, like, friends and existing in neurotypical society and dating and stuff. It's you know, it's definitely been a pain point for me at a lot of times in my life, for sure. And even sort of nowadays, sometimes it's, you know, I think it's just a mindset, you know. As long as I'm being myself, I'm happy.
Totally possible. This is why us autists have to stick together. Yeah, it's okay. So I don't talk much about the autism stuff outside of a kind of like jokey irreverence, because I genuinely don't think it affects my social abilities like that much, or at least not as much as it seems to affect some other people's. For example, I don't mask. I've never masked. I've never felt a need to. I've just been weird around people. I'm more of the like blunt and off-putting autistic than the other kind or whatever. So I've never done that. So all of the
to be honest, I don't disagree. Like, it doesn't seem like he masks. I think it's quite hard to mask, like, if you're a streamer, you're like streaming every day. Like, it's be a task, you know? It's got the odd vocal monotony and what do you call the lack of facial expressions? What do they call it? What's the name? And it's not facial monotony, you know what I mean?
Of the friends and social relationships I've ever had or whatever, they were all in line with my authentic behavior. That comes with its own set of issues. But I'm an anti-masker, okay? I was at the protest and everything. A lot of masking is automatic learned behavior. Okay, so masking, if you're autistic, is like an effort to sort of feign neurotypical behavior.
Yeah.
Masking is something that oftentimes autistic people learn as a defense mechanism.
Yes.
Because they are punished for behaving their normal way. Yeah. They're punished for behaving in a fashion which is more in line with how they actually feel. Now,
they're also rewarded for copying other people's behavior and mimicking it. You know, when people say fit in more, that kind of stuff, you're like, okay, what other people doing? I'll do that. And then they receive a positive result and they're like, okay, that's the way that I'm supposed to connect with another human being.
Now, I'm lucky here because I had friends growing up and I've always had very supportive parents, which means that my weird behavior, for the most part, has been, I don't know if encourage is the right word. My parents have always been chill with me. So at no point growing up did I ever feel like I have to hide who I am and like develop a system for acting better around other people or else. So I've never actually had that problem, you know, myself. I know I can understand the drive to behave that way. I can understand that many people have been put in that position. I totally get that. I personally have not, you know. But genuinely, it's not good, you know. I think one of the things that actually is like really good about the internet is that it allows people who don't have the exaggerated swagger of a black teen to practice code switching, where if they have to mask publicly, like or with their family or friends or whatever, or school or whatever, they can have people online who they can talk to and be more authentic and upfront. Yeah. The issue is, and I think this is the issue that girl had in the TikTok, is she didn't know she was masking, which means that she didn't realize that there was any way to behave other than that calculated engagement with what she thought the best like outcome was, which is really bad because it means that she's not.
Yeah, it's like this is how I'm supposed to communicate with people. There's no other way. Always felt like an alien researching humans. Yeah, me too. I do. To be honest, I do have quite a fascination with neurotypicals. Like that's where my interest came from. I wasn't interested necessarily in autism. It's interested in other people. It's just a lot of the ways that I understood other people is by understanding how I was different to them. Obviously, like, it's quite a big thing. It wasn't the only thing. It was also the social psychology stuff, but find him fascinating. Just anybody who has a different brain to me, no matter if they are the norm, I guess, whatever that is. And I still want to try and understand them, you know. Only reason I had a friend in high school is because my school had a large clique of outcasts. Yeah. I mean, I was, to be honest, I was a bit of a social drifter. I just talked to random individuals from random groups, for sure. Jordan says it's redacted. Why has it been redacted? Have you said something naughty? Please feel free to post it again. I'll try and read it quickly. Noble Heart Horse said, I just typed in autism, Diet Coke and dating in my app that generates AI art in order to see what image would generate. Please post it in the Discord. Maybe I should start doing that for my streams to see what it chucks up and put it as a thumbnail. My lord.
She's not even aware of how she really acts outside of that. It indicates a lack of self-awareness, which is probably imposed by bad social situations. You know, I'm not blaming her for that, but that lack of self-awareness can make it really difficult to understand what you're actually here for and what other people might be interested in about you. See, there's plenty.
I don't think it's a lack of self-awareness. I think it's almost hyper-awareness. Like you're completely aware of it. Like you're aware of it to the point where you make active sort of trial and error sort of discoveries on how to act, not like yourself, you know. It's just that when you grow up and this is just your experience, you know, going through the world, you know, obviously you're going to interpret that as the way that everyone does it. You find out that people don't do that. They just do it intuitively. It's kind of this whole emotional component that drives people to do things. And it's not just all based on like cold, hard logic and facts. There is like sort of a level of intuition to it. You're like, oh, I see. So people just do things based on how they feel they should do things, not based on like analyzing and like constructing a way to insert yourself into a social group. Oh yeah, Noble Heart Horse. It generated a picture of a man handing a bottle of Coke to a woman that he's obviously interested in dating. Excessive self-awareness. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like you just constantly, it's like you're paranoid. You know, it's a whole game, like cognitive chess. Crazy. I understand where it's coming from. I don't think it's a lack of self-awareness. I think it's just a lack of like awareness of what socializing is supposed to be like and what the meaning of it is, you know, and how you're supposed to feel. It's kind of just like, you know, the things that we get told as autistic people is like fit in, try and get friends, try and get that. It's never about, oh, find someone who makes you feel at home. Find someone who accepts you. Find someone of you know, some nature in that sense. But do you know what I mean?
Plenty of room in the world for weirdos. And I don't mean that like derisively or whatever. Like the world's a big place and there are lots of weird people, and there have always been lots of weird people, you know? There are people in their 60s and 70s who grew up as like model train set enthusiasts who spent their entire lives like with a really specific hobby. There are people who are like huge nerds about like you know, like road work and traffic direction, and who will write letters to city council like arguing against the putting a stop sign here because it would like divert traffic. There are people who have spent their entire lives like moving from book club to book club to book club because they just like that's their jam, you know, like that's what they're about. There are plenty of weird people out there.
I wouldn't say that's weird behavior. I don't know. Is weird just anything that's just not like, what is it, that clothing design? Just like Adidas tracksuits or Lululemon and like Love Island and Carly B, or like some kind of new trendy rap music. I don't know what is considered to be weird. I have no idea.
Out there, that's fine. We need them. They're good. That's great. A lot of us, even people who consider themselves normal, are all very Patrick Bateman-y, you know, like weird and specific and hopefully not as harmful of ways. But you need to be aware of the ways in which you're weird and how to deal with it and how to present that in order for you to make a good life out of that, you know? That lady on the TikTok, she could have plenty of friends just fine. You know, there's nothing inherent preventing that from happening with her. But it requires a lot of self-awareness. Autistic people often are decently self-aware because the criticism of others forces introspection
Very
on them.
Introspective.
But being self-aware isn't necessarily the same as being self-aware in like a constructive or like a like a forward thinking way, So awareness is one thing, but
I kind of get what he's talking about. He's just talking about like being aware of what social interaction is supposed to be like.
Once you're aware of how you are, how you feel, how you behave, what other people are interested in, what's being asked of you, how do you move forward with that? And well, one of the things that I've always said in awareness of the fact that 98% of you guys are autistic is that when interacting with other people, you should learn how to responsibly channel your enthusiasm for the things you actually do care about. Autistic people are worse than most when it comes to performative small talk. Like the idea of having to get through a barrier of social pleasantries to get at what they really want in a conversation, or like, because the etiquette.
Here's the solution to the small talk dilemma. Say hello, introduce yourself, make some random comment about things, and then ask them about something that you've been thinking about recently. That's how you do it. That's how you tell if they're like a real G, like real interesting person to talk to. Just you don't need to interact in that way if you don't want to. Like, sure, people are going to feel more familiar with it, but if you just chill and you just talk to people and like bring up things that are kind of on your mind, like some people are going to be like, whoa, what the hell is he talking about? Like this strange person. Some people are going to be like, you know what? I'm really bored of going through the same motions with every single person that I'm being introduced to. This is a nice step back, I can have a proper conversation. Some people are like that, some people are not. But once you find someone there's a lot more people than you'd think who would respond positively to just fast tracking it to some kind of interesting conversation. You don't need to do it that much. Don't just go up to someone and say, oh, did you what do you think of the new Jurassic Park movie or something? Well, you could say that actually. And they could say, oh, I don't really know much about it. It's like, oh, what do you do? What do you know a lot about? Like, what kind of movies are you into? Then you can have a conversation. You can always follow it up. Doesn't matter what you're asking, as long as you're not being rude or inappropriate, you should be okay. Be more interested in talking to someone who didn't fake everything. Yeah. Neurotypicals do fake stuff, like a lot. Yeah, people do that. They have barriers up. They have ways that they talk in different situations. Sometimes they're feeling like they don't want to talk much. Sometimes they do. And there is no rule book. So just go ham, Try and listen to them. Sort of ask them probing questions, but also share about yourself at the same time. Oh, hi, nice to meet you. What do you think about karst geology? They'd be like, oh, actually, I don't. What is karst geology? They're like, oh, interesting. Have you been into that for long? Someone wants to talk to you. They'll just talk to you. Like, you'll find some route of conversation. But if they start talking to you and say, oh, I don't know much about that, but I've sort of been interested in astronomy for a while, and you're not interested in it, and you just go divert back to geology, like, it's probably not the best thing. You probably ask them about the astronomy and stuff, and it's just you've got to flow with it. It doesn't really matter much, like, for thinking about all the social nuances to a certain extent. You just have a nice conversation, an interesting conversation. And then if you find that you enjoy spending time with that person and they enjoy spending time with you, and you've seen them a few times, it's like, let's go with it.
Etiquette when it comes to like how to handle small talk and when to move on to the next topic or whatever. This is actually really complicated stuff. Neurotypical people f it up all the time. Like, yep. It's not like every neurotypical person is like this public speaking god or whatever. Most are quite bad at it. So it's not like a hard line dividing autistic and non-autistic people, but there's definitely a trend in which groups are better at it than others. So that's one of the reasons why I've advocated that if you're, a Vaush viewer, and you struggle with socializing with people, one of the best...
You struggle with socializing with people who aren't autistic. Important one. Stick a neurotypical in a group of autistic people. They'll quickly find out, like, what the sort of communication barriers are between neurotypes. Depends who you're around, really. You don't know. You could be talking to someone who's, like, a little bit neurodivergent, maybe not autistic, but I don't know. I feel like autistic people can socialize easily. Yeah, we don't struggle. It's just it's just finding someone who just suits us, and just being considerate that the other person wants to talk. Once you got those two, and you don't really go to say anything offensive or just out there or like insulting in nature, you should be okay. I mean, some people would be fine with that anyway. They might find it a bit charming, but you know, it's just small things. Just like you don't need to change your whole personality and the way that you interact with the world too much to really interact with neurotypicals. You do if you really want to be results focused, but if you're just looking to socialize for the benefit of you socializing, just socialize, you know, or just sit back and listen. Be a listener person. Whose video is this? This is yes, famous streamer Achu. This is Vaush.
One of the best ways you can learn to engage on terms that'll make you and possibly them happy is to identify things that you're interested in and
famous
find
French
interesting
streamer
ways of conveying them. Because that's a good way of sharing your interests and finding people who care about the stuff you care about. And, you know, it gives you some leeway with learning how to engage in ways that don't involve this highly performative, like small talk, like charade, whatever. And stuff
authenticity
like that
and being chilled and easy to talk to.
Either way, I'm rooting for. Small talk is boring as that's my problem. This is an autistic thing, okay? But I understand small talk because I can do it. Small talk isn't about small talk. Small talk is about having a bunch of trite, irrelevant subjects to run through that allow you to get a read on the other person that you're talking to. Nobody who talks about the weather or how nice of a day it was or the quick like, oh, job or what are you here for? They're not actually asking about those things. What they're doing is they're like conversational hors d'oeuvres or whatever. They're little snacks that you...
Well, I heard this idea of why people do small talk, and I think it's quite compelling. Basically, you're willing to talk about stuff that's pretty inconsequential, personal to the other person, perhaps, that you don't really care about because you don't know that person. So you're basically just, to some degree, showing that you are invested in spending time just interacting with them for the sake of it. Or vibe check, yeah.
That you engage in to begin with, to not only to rev you up for the real convo, but also because it gives you an idea of how they're engaging with you. You can read their tone, their mood, what they may or may not be interested in, sensitive subjects, if they're looking for anything from you, if they're looking to get away, anything like that.
Yeah, it's a probe.
That's so dumb. No, actually, it's socially
conversational
useful.
Probing.
It's very, very valuable. There's a reason why humans default towards it. If you don't have an interest in it, that's fine. But don't think it's because neurotypical people are less interesting than you, or because they're less smart than you, or because they're more tolerant of boring things than you.
Good points. I like that. I do actually like that. I do like that. There's a very good point. Yeah, it does not mean neurotypicals are boring. We're not superior because we don't interact the same way. Superior maybe in our eyes for us. It makes us feel better. Like makes us feel like we don't have to play a game of table tennis versus, you know, having like a you talk for 2 minutes and then I talk for 2 minutes kind of style of communication. Sometimes we just want that, you know.
They're just engaging with something that you don't find interesting. But if you don't like it, that's fine. This is actually an interesting thing where it intersects with gender, since a lot of the things I masked when I was not transitioning were things people said were too girly, and also things that come from my autism. Well, there is a pretty strong trend between autism and being trans, particularly a trans girl, and I do think there's probably a reason for that. There is a overlap, certainly, I think, between some of the social tendencies developed by autistic and by trans people when it comes to, like you say, masking or like properly framing behavior.
Bree says, I hate small talk. Him, hi. Me, hi. Him, how are you? I'm good. The weekend was busy. Hope you're good too. Him, I am. Wait a minute. That's the actual question. I mean, if that's the extent of the small talk, I think you're doing pretty well. It's when you start talking about random, like, stuff that neither of you really care about, like the weather. You know, use it as like a small opening and just go straight for the interesting conversation. That's how I do it. I'm feeling a bit sicky. Ugh.
Behavior, you know. Vaush, do you think it's possible for people who are willing to be your friends out of pity to become genuine friends who accept, love, and appreciate you despite whatever quirks you may have? I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to say
Probably
no.
Not.
I think that in a lot of ways, pity for someone around you is an almost irreplaceable and permanent feeling. That no matter what you may do or to change your behavior around them, it is very unlikely that it will ever erase that feeling they have towards you. In fact, oftentimes they might feel kind of like annoyed that you're becoming less pitiable clashes with the pity they feel for you. For instance, you can see this in high school reunions. If a person was kind of pathetic in high school, but they come back and they're doing quite well, the meme is like, oh, well, now everyone will love and respect you. But that's actually not true. Oftentimes, the pity that people felt towards you back then will cause them to feel...
This is a very doomer perspective. I can't say that this is translated at all. There are people that I met that used to know, they're generally quite nice, actually, to be honest. Coca-Cola has some anti-sickness in phosphoric acid, yeah. Oh, it's the aspartame. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, it's hitting me a little bit. I was gonna take a quick breaks and go get probably some Pepsi. Oh, let me just sit for a second. How is the weather? Are you enjoying the weather? Got my Pepsi. Aspartame. I was having aspartame withdrawal. I had pleasantries and emails at the end as an afterthought. Yeah, I think a lot of people do that. Hello, Paul. Ginger ale is best for nausea. I feel like I need to lay down on the ground.
Feel weirder about you now that you've had a glow up, which is one of the reasons why it's really important.
I don't know if I agree with that.
To engage with people well in first impressions sometimes. It's not a one and done thing. It can be, I'm not talking 100% of the time, but it's definitely, it's definitely a thing. I still don't understand autism. That's okay. Autistic people don't either. So wait, small talk is just gauging someone's interest in talking. That's your take in it? Because for me, most of my issue comes from that. For the most part, yes. Small talk is about gauging interest, establishing basic conversational rules, getting a feel for the person. Even if you're just there's a million things you can read in small talk.
Yes, your messages are showing up, Mr. Pitiful Chips. I apologize if I'm not seeing them. Hello, Neurogeezer.
That have nothing to do with the small talk itself. And if you're autistic and you want proof of this, I would suggest you watch a movie. Watch any movie that has a heavy emphasis on character writing, and watch scenes where people engage in small talk and then the scene ends. And ask yourself, what was the purpose of that scene and what was learned between the characters? Was it only the content of the subjects of discussion, or was there something else going on there? 100% of the time, something else was going on there. There was always something else being read there.
Yeah, and it's just completely uninteresting to me, if I'm honest. That's why I don't like watching a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows that have the acting in. I just prefer cartoons, I just want to chill. I don't want to be learning like social lessons from my I used to. You have that whole concept of movie mimicry, don't you? But that's a gateway to masking too, I think. But I don't know. Some people conflate learning about neurotypicals and socializing as masking. I don't think so. I think understanding is fine. Go for it. Just don't try and copy people and their personality.
Somebody read from the other an emotion, or that they want to leave the conversation, or they're hiding something, or they're so on and so forth. There's any specific recommendations? I legitimately think you could get this from almost any movie, like basically any movie. I think Tarantino movies are really good in that Tarantino movies. Yeah. Tarantino movies are full of characters engaging in small talk where they don't say very much, but you get a ton off of it because Tarantino's really favorable towards like naturalistic dialogue where people are doing serious shit, but they're being really like irreverent the whole way through. Oh yeah, Better Call Saul has a lot of that as well. That's true. Yeah, Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad are both very character writing focused, so they would have a lot of that. Yeah. Vaush, so if people have negative perceptions of you they found off-putting, that isn't something that can change? No, negative perceptions can change. Pity is a very difficult one to change. Very, very, very difficult, in my opinion. The Godfather movies, there's a lot of gauging how people respond to certain subjects, and it tells what they know. Yeah, stuff like that. Okay, does everyone feel appropriately autism pilled? I hope you understand why I'm talking about this, by the way. It's good to go over. Any takes in this study that found neurotypical people are less willing to interact with autistic people based solely on their voice and appearance? I try not to do more over it because it's kind of depressing. Yeah, newsflash, people are going to be less likely to interact with you if you're unattractive, if you have a, if you're short of stature, if you're a guy. People have a lot of like, mean biases.
Yeah. I think it's different for autistic people because there's a lot of personality traits that people can draw out of your first impression that are related to your autistic traits but aren't related to your personality, like the eye contact thing. people just can interpret you as not being confident or not feeling comfortable or being mistrustful because you're not making as much eye contact as most people. But I mean, the general sentiment of, people make judgments, I think is a good thing to remember because like, you just can't escape it, you know? I mean, I think it would be silly to say that, you know, you as a human entity does not make an idea of what someone is like by how they look and what they're talking to you about. Like, that, you know, obviously you want to try and question that stuff, but, you know, you still make judgments of people. That's just like how you figure out if you want to talk to someone or if you like someone or you feel safe around or relaxed around someone or you feel excited or happy, you know. But no, if you just be authentically you and just chilled, and if people want to exit out of conversations, they just will. And if they don't, it's kind of like, it's not really my problem. Just, you know, go if you want to. Yeah. You don't have to, it's fine. You don't have to say sorry. You know, I think a lot of the things is just one of my sort of social ability has improved by just being authentic and relaxed and, you know, and moderately hesitant about, you know, engaging with people, just a normal amount. Obsessed with documentaries and
we all do, including you. Neurotypical peers are less willing to interact with those with autism based on thin sliced judgments.
Yeah, this here is red flags.
Individuals with ASD, including those who otherwise require less support, face severe difficulties in everyday social interactions. Research in this area is primarily focused on identifying the causes. Here are 3 studies. First impressions of individuals with ASD. Thin slice of real-world social behavior by typically developing observers are not only far less favorable across a range of trait judgments. It's difficult for me to make much of this without knowing specifically what was said or done. Yeah, there's a lot here. I wouldn't worry too much about the broad stats. I would worry primarily with your own behavior. Boy, those are a lot of numbers. Thank God for the graph. So we have ASD individuals and TD, neurotypical. Speech content, audio visual, audio only, silent video, static frame. With favorability, and then ratings between the two, with autistic people rating far higher on being awkward, equal ratings between both on being smart and trustworthy, more or less. But apart from that,
really,
non-autistic people
I would have expected them to take us as being less trustworthy. So
they pathologize positive stuff about autism as well. Yes, that's true. Mm-hmm. But obviously, being autistic does mean that sometimes social interactions will be more difficult. But that's something that can be corrected. You know, it is always possible for people to learn new behaviors. Very important. I don't know, show them this video, K and Astronomer, including this timestamp of me saying this right now in response to what you just said in chat.
Well, that was a video a clip from the Vaush pit. What it means to mask as an autistic person and why I don't do it. Interesting. I think a lot of it is, you know, sits quite home for me. I think there's some little things that I don't agree with, but I don't expect that I'd agree with every single person that I react to. If I do, it would be strange. I'd probably not even agree with myself if I watched one of my videos in some respects. I think it's quite a good, productive conversation to be had about masking. And, you know, interesting video. Go check it out. And it's in the description, of course. And if you like this, make sure to like it. You subscribe. And consider going checking out my original videos over on the Thomas Henley YouTube channel. Yeah, see you later.